Chinese is like the cutest language.
So last time we talked about material design and flat design and wondered if they were the end of design, right? Like an evolution towards a goal or a fad among many others. I often frame the conversation in the bigger topic of like different fads that we see, and in particular like gentrification. We talked about that a little bit. I went to Japan recently, and as a side note, another follow-up, one thing I can definitely say is that gentrification is a global phenomenon. Right? You see a lot of Brooklyn style hipster stuff in Tokyo too.
Yeah.
You said something?
No, I was just like, yeah.
You know that? But it's a bit weird though. Like, aren't fads, like, is this the first like truly global fad? Aren't fads supposed to be tied to a local culture?
I mean, I think it's the first global fad just because it's the first time that we are that globalized. So obviously, like,
so globalized.
Yeah. So obviously, like every fad or every trend goes like around the world, I guess.
Yeah. So,
but I don't know, and like the hipster gentrification stuff is a bit weird though. Like I don't know, like it's not a real. There's not a real one thing. Like I don't know. I've seen, when it's a hipster kind of shit, but like it's always a different thing. Like last time I went to a shop, it was a hairdresser that sell plants, but also vegan food. So I don't know.
Do you think it's like postmodernism? Like, when you see it, but it can be anything?
I think it can be anything. As long as there's... it must be at least organic or vegan or 4 different things that has nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue actually to the thing I was talking about initially, which is the conversation I had with this friend. Yeah. So we were talking about that, and he was telling me that he thinks the way he sees it is that this gentrification effect is not that much like a fad or an evolution, but rather a return to values like nature and or just a genuine connection or whatever that mankind has been pushed away from in industrial eras.
What?
So I thought it was pretty interesting. He said like a way back to the desire to rebuild small-scale coherent communities.
How is that coherent though?
To go back to authenticity? What do you mean coherent?
I mean, like, I feel like it's kind of fake authenticity.
Like small-scale communities coherent? I don't know how a community is coherent.
Yeah, and like it's not that coherent first, and secondly, like it's not really authentic as well, because finding a Brooklyn kind of shop in Tokyo is not like...
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's okay. That's the things are not authentic, but they result from the urge to be authentic, from the yearning for authenticity. How about that?
I would call bullshit because if it was a return to authenticity, I mean, like it's kind of like I don't really know. Like, I feel like it's kind of true because, like, in the hipster area of Paris, there's more and more local shop, like, that sells, I don't know, even, like, local butcher, local, like, cheese shop, like, that sort of things. Before, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, there was, like, I don't know, a butcher and a cheese shop, like, every corner of the street, and now there's none, and now they're reopening. But rebranded themselves as, like, whatever, like, organic, blah, blah, blah,
vegan.
shit.
Vegan butcher.
Yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe we're finding a way to go back to like that kind of local shop kind of feeling by like rebranding them as Brooklyn hipster. So it might be, yeah.
I mean, the main idea of his point was this counterpoint to the industrialization and globalization and I guess dehumanization. Like the big scale of things.
Yeah, no, but like why not? Well, why not? But like I don't see really the connection with material design.
Oh, with material design? Well, you can say like, I don't know, going back to simpler interfaces after information overloading in the 90s where everything was spreadsheets. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. That's kind of a weak link. But whatever. If we don't have any other follow-up, like...
Sure, I mean, It depends if you consider the topic to be material design in itself, or the bigger question that bothers me is like what comes after material design and gentrification, essentially. What comes after the iPhone?
But I think the two things are a bit unrelated though. Like it's a bit related, meaning it's the same generation and it's the same like fashion.
Just a temporal correlation?
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, we don't have organic app. Well, I mean, we can, yeah, maybe like app are trying now to be more thoughtful about your time and your like cognitive load.
Yeah, okay, so maybe I'm doing a bit of an overinflation where I'm conflating those two trends, but
Today's episode is brought to you in partnership with a brand new technology that allows you to, by merely pressing a few buttons, change your neural structure and incept into your brain thousands of limitless worlds and adventures. Does the one real world feel too small for you? Well, never fear, you have an infinity at your disposal with our new sponsor, video games.
Yeah. Okay.
should we move on? It's been like 10
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah. Let's move on to coronavirus.
So we're talking about viruses, or are we talking about ski?
Let's talk about the virus. I really don't want to because like that's all you hear right now. But I feel like it's kind of important. I guess whatever.
Okay, maybe the first thing we can talk about is why do you feel that it's important?
I don't like because actually I've read a Medium article about the coronavirus. It was kind of so he was like an epidemiologist and like he's done like all of these stats about like okay what happened in China, what happened in South Korea, what happened in Italy, what will happen in other countries if like nothing budge, like if you have like policies that like the Chinese government push, like what would happen and blah blah blah. And it was really really frightening because like the only country that actually is doing great now is China, just because they closed everything down. Like they were like, okay, don't move, and people like didn't move because they're Chinese people, and like if the government says something, like they're doing it.
I mean, if the French government were to outlaw moving in the street, I'm pretty sure like people would. They would strike, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like that wouldn't work. No, but like that would work when it's too late. And that goes into your point that you were saying pre-show.
So we were preparing for this, about what we could say about the virus that hasn't already been said 1,000 times, and like, bring a new interesting perspective like we try to do in this podcast. Try to bring a new light to the question. And I think I found an interesting way to look at it is, does it tell us anything about the event horizon to which humanity as a whole can react? Because clearly for global warming, the event horizon is a bit too far, right? Humanity can't react to that scale of like 10 years or something. But for coronavirus, something weird happened and like it did react, right? Even though you were saying like maybe it's not reacting like it should. But there is reaction, like all the schools are shut down in a bunch of countries. Like there is stuff happening.
But even then, you see that like different countries has different like time horizon.
Well, it's a bit hard to talk about that because different countries also have different levels of infection, right?
No, but like when you see, but like there's some country like but even in a pandemic, like what you can see also is like even in a pandemic situation, like country are thinking about their country before like the global thing, because like if there was a global thought about coronavirus, everyone should do the same thing.
Yeah, obviously, but that's like obvious, no? That people are stuck in this country.
Yeah,
mentality.
but it goes no, yeah, but I mean like the time like you can also see like some countries that do policy right away, and like some other country, even if the coronavirus is not there, like Singapore, like Taiwan, like that sort of country, because they already had viruses before, like during, I think it was Zika, no, not Zika. Like in Singapore, like there was a huge virus, like not that Lipsy. I can't remember the name, but like it was not so long ago. So now like they know how to react. And before it was there, they were like, okay, let's close everything for 2 weeks. And now they don't have it. Like there's like 3 cases.
Would you say they are vaccinated against pandemic as a
Yeah, they
civilization?
learned. Like they learned shit. Like
Well,
let's not do anything. So maybe
I don't know if all the civilization can learn at the same learning rates.
yeah. But maybe we need one global warming to then like fail at one global warming to not fail again.
Yeah, maybe. But it's so funny that you can like actually put a number. Like if the consequence is in a few months, everything changes. But if the consequence is in a few years, nothing changes.
So but my counterpoint to that is I don't think it's about time horizon. I think it's about effect. Like we can start to see the effect of global warming in some countries. Like there's more hurricanes, there's more like drought, there's more like stuff like that.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the time horizon is actually 0 minutes. It has to happen now.
I think you need to see. I think if it just right now, if it's just a theory, not really a theory, but like if it's just like proven fact in the future, it's not enough. If nothing is happening, it's not enough.
Fun. One thing that I also noticed comparing that to like is the inertia. Like in global warming, like not a lot of countries do do strong things, so you have you don't have the social pressure that we do with the virus, where everyone is shutting their border, so everyone else is shutting their border, etc. That reminded me of, I don't remember what kind of experiment that was, but it was people like going door to door to get people to, reduce their electricity bill, like propose a new, a new consumption that was strictly beneficial if you look at the metrics. And so they try different means of persuasion, like showing the money gain, etc., showing it's easy. And everything failed in about the same way, except one method that worked really great. That was telling the people, oh, your neighbors are already doing it.
Oh, human being.
I don't know if it's interesting at all, worth discussing at all.
It's super interesting, but like it shows how like we're not that far from being chimpanzee. Like we're just like social animals that like to have better stuff than our fucking neighbor. So let's talk about cultural singularity. I'm letting you start because I'm really not sure what it is.
You said you're really not sure you understand even the topic.
Yeah, I understand actually what it is, which is even worse.
I don't know. As always, it's gonna be like kind of vague and whipped up or whatever, a bit improvised. But so this question came to me when I was watching. I don't know. I don't remember if it was a podcast or YouTube videos. Let's say I was watching something about the history of marketing and communication, essentially. And they were talking about how before the Cold War, communication marketing was usually pretty straightforward. Like, oh, buy this because it's good, etc. And lately, we've added layers of irony and self-deprecation on top of this. Think about like Deadpool or whatever, like, oh, this is an ad for a car, like, blah. And so it seems to go even like more and more into irony and like self-awareness, adding level of self-awareness. And so I was thinking about it, like, you know how they talk about the computer singularity, where it is like essentially the power for a computer to emulate a human brain, something like that, to create itself. Are we heading towards some sort of ironical singularity where we keep being like ironic about the previous phase? I don't know. I see this also in meme pages, for instance, in memes in early 2000s were very straightforward, like, oh, here's a cute dog doing some cute things. And now you have baked memes that just don't have like any semantic information. But I don't know if you know about this kind of stuff.
I don't follow, like, I haven't followed meme for quite a while now, but like even before, like there were like I don't know. I had a 9gag phase, like everyone, I guess. And like, and there was like a lot of self-referentiating joke. Like if you didn't go to 9gag every day, you couldn't understand half the joke. Just because like, okay, this is a meme about a meme about a meme. So like you need to understand the reference to understand the joke.
So in the same way, like we keep building like these layers of humor or self-deprecation or irony in marketing or in memes or whatever. Is that a singularity?
So what would it look? What? Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure I understand. Like, so let's go back a little. What would it look like? Like, meaning with computer singularity, like the threshold is kind of easy to define. Like, okay, it's the point where computer can create computer, or it's the point where computer become conscious, or it's the point whatever. Like, however you define it, like you can define it quite well. With cultural singularity, what would that mean? Would that mean that you can't create something that is not self-reference? You can't create something without any cultural context, which was kind of always true. What would that look like?
Okay, so this topic is a bit linked to the latest book I read. I was reading Simulacra and Simulacrum by Baudrillard, something like that. And I think he nailed kind of like a good criteria for this, which is when you can't create anything real, essentially. So the whole point of Simulacrum and Simulacra, it's a bit of it's a bit complex. I'm not sure I got all of it. Maybe I should reread it. But an example he gives is, for instance, take the Iraq War, I think in the early 2000s. Like, this story about weapons of mass destruction could be completely fabricated, but the whole world acted as if it were true, and in some way the truth didn't matter, the truth of the story. So it's kind of like, I guess, ties to the post-truth era, maybe? What do you think about that criteria?
So it means I'm not sure I understand the criteria. So the criteria is because like there was two criteria in your thing.
The truth of something doesn't matter.
The truth of something. I don't think that can be a criteria though. But I mean, like that was okay. So but you can see that in real life right now, like in politics mostly.
Yeah.
But do you really think that it's like inevitable? Like meaning like it can't be stopped? Like I think it's a misstep more than a threshold.
I'm not sure about that, because so it's the whole thing about Nietzsche and God is dead, right? Once you get rid of the absolute values of religion, like once you enter a godless phase, there is no more like absolute value. There is no more absolute I want to say truth, but there's no more absolute value of reference. And so the only thing I'm saying is, like, as soon as you've entered the territory of my absolute is arbitrary, there's no really turning back into like believing that there is a big absolute. So I don't think we can come back from this truth doesn't matter.
But like I don't agree, because like I'm really not sure that people don't care anymore. I think people don't think it's true. Like I think they still care about true. They just don't know what is true anymore. But they do.
Wait,
care.
Have you heard a Trump supporter lately?
Yeah, and they trust Trump over everything.
There's countless examples of interview where you face them with logical contradiction, like Trump said that and Trump said that, and they say like, whatever, he's Trump, I trust him.
Yeah, because he's God. For them, God is not dead.
Okay, so God is back.
No, but he was never dead for some people. It's just like it's more people than we thought. I really feel that way. I think like we're in the process of killing God, but like not everyone is there yet.
This episode is brought to you by windows. Windows are kind of like walls, except they let some wavelength through, so the human eye can actually see through them. So they're perfect to break the monotony of a wall if you're not bold enough to go for the radical alternative that is no wall.
The thing is, so in the first part we were like a bit all over the place, I guess, because we didn't define the problem clearly, and I mean even the definition is actually the problem. So maybe you want to go back to like actually talking about what singularity is, and I have an angle that I think might help us and might save us a little bit
Okay.
from this mess, is that the technological singularity is making always better and better technology, more and more memory, faster and faster computers, whatever. But with this, you can communicate and store more and more information and more efficiently. And therefore, you do see an acceleration of communication and evolution of culture, etc. So whatever makes culture move forward, it is accelerated.
So I have another angle about the acceleration of culture, which can go through the singularity of culture as well, which has a bit to do. Now I remember what you said at the start that I wanted to talk about, and like we didn't have time. So right at the start, so there was two things. There was truth is useless now, in today's world. But the second thing was everything is self-referencing.
Yeah.
And I think what you can say is when everything is like more and more self-referencing, you can actually compress a lot of information into one thing. Because one meme that is self-referencing a meme that is self-referencing a meme, you actually self-embed 5 different stories into one. And that's kind of interesting.
Okay. When you said compressing, I thought you would... I thought about a diminishing, but actually what you mean is that the density of information is increasing.
Yeah.
That's exactly true, right? That's very to the point.
And we can actually see that, I think. I don't think it's like a thought experiment. I think it's actually happening. A lot of things in our culture wouldn't work without each self-referencing the culture of the past. Okay, but how is the self-referencing stuff actually accelerating right now compared to 20 years ago?
If you take research, for instance, 60 years ago, when you were writing a paper about another paper, etc., it had to be published and it was very slower. Now you can reference people who are publishing the same year. And
But actually what you can see in science, though, is not that long ago, I don't know, if you read Darwin, it doesn't quote anyone.
Yeah.
It's let's do that alone. I don't care.
I mean, back then, quotations were over millennia. He actually, low key, maybe, well, he quotes reality, kind of. I mean, he talks about the established state of fate of things, but there was no book of reference.
The Bible.
Yeah, he quotes the Bible in a way. As opposed to quote the Bible.
So maybe what's interesting is what we can say is because there's more and more culture in a very large definition of culture. So anything that is written or past, so fiction, that sort of thing, because there's more and more, you can more and more reference it. And so you can more and more compress what's happening before because there's more to compress, basically. We didn't really invent a new way to compress stuff, but it's just there's more to do it.
So we're going towards in the end we'll have one single meme that will reference all of mankind, all of possible culture that ever will have happened. The last meme.
And that would be a great story.
I'll make notes. That could be a nice little short story for my blog. Yeah.
I don't know, I'm trying to find an example of that sort of things. Because what I wanted to say earlier is that in the Chinese language, there's a lot of story with 4 characters. So for example, it's I don't know, I can't remember because it's been quite a while, but...
Okay, they're just 4 Chinese character letters?
So 4 characters that says for example, the old man and the horse. And so it's 4 characters, but it's actually not the name, but how you reference this story. And it actually says as stupid as this like old man that like sold his horse instead of like using it to like go somewhere and blah 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 blah. And like there's a lot of this short story.
Oh, that is extremely cute.
Yeah, it's super, but like yeah, Chinese is like the cutest language. Not the cutest, but like a very cute language.
So it's like reference, it's memes that everyone knows. It is really cool. I don't recall. Well, it doesn't happen so explicitly in other culture, but I mean, it kind of like you can quote like, stories or episodes of Friends, and people can understand. Like you can have metaphors as shorthand for complex ideas. Like if you say like, oh, the story of the hare and the turtle, you can express the whole story with just saying the title.
But you don't do it though, do you?
Well, I do it with like quotes of sitcoms and series. Like it's like well, for me, I often came like, oh, it's exactly, I feel exactly the same as like Joey in that episode of Friends or whatever. Friends is a very dated example. To come back to the point though, when you reference something that references something that references something, like when I talk about like, oh, it's like that episode of series that was referencing this episode of series or whatever, there's a point I think where you have some kind of like oblivion horizon, right? If you read a science fiction book that is inspired by another book that is inspired by X, that is inspired by X, you lose the trace of the initial point, maybe.
Well, it's like in philosophy, I feel like, because like I wanted to read, I can't remember the book, but like it was referencing another philosopher. I was like, okay, I need to read that because like I don't understand what the fuck is happening. So I started reading this author, and this author was referencing someone else. I was like, okay, I need to read that. And then we went back to like Platon, and I was like, oh fuck my life, I need to read like all the philosophy.
I cannot believe there is no graph telling you the dependencies of the books you read and the authors. For instance, the textbook example is like if you're watching his Dark Materials, it's heavily inspired by John Milton, Paradise Lost. So I think you can gain more understanding, a deeper understanding of the book if you read the NDP. But maybe you can get maybe you should read it after. I don't know.
No, yeah, but like for fantasy, like I feel like for novels, like you can gain a lot by like knowing the context and like reading the context as well. But like for philosophy, sometimes you just can't understand what the fuck is happening if you don't have the basis.
I mean, philosophy is a science, right? It's like scientific papers referencing prior art.
I mean, like, if you want to read art, you kind of need to, like, read, I don't know, like, Heidegger first, and, like, it's not written anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We desperately need that. But maybe if you just read one book of Sartre, it encompasses all the data.
So that's what I thought at the start. Like, I thought that maybe if I read everything, like, the whole Sartre book, I will get an understanding of what the fuck can be for him. You don't.
Okay, so this data compression is imperfect.
Yeah, clearly. Okay, like, I feel like we need a third part to this little thing.
What the thing is, what should the outcome be of this discussion? Because are we heading towards a singularity? Yes, of course. Is it a cultural singularity? Kind of. Like it will have cultural impact. What is humanity computing towards? What is human culture developing towards? It's the topic of the other episode. But maybe, so I don't think the conclusion here is an answer. I think the conclusion here is more of a definition of what the cultural singularity will be like. And if not a singularity on its own, it will be like the byproduct of the technological singularity maybe, but there will be some kind of, no, I don't know, that could be a conclusion.
But the okay, so what I think what we could say is like the cultural for the cultural singularity to happen, you would need technological singularity first, just because for it to happen you would need infinite memory to have every context in mind, so you can actually like compress it.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that this is all information and that you need the medium.
Yeah, but no, but like, oh yes, you need the medium, but you also need the knowledge. Like, I think like what we say basically is like the to self-reference, you need to have a reference. And what we say is we have more and more references, but we need a medium to store those references. And like clearly the brain is not able to store that many references.
And I can't wait for the future where you're gonna be in the far future and you'll look at the one true meme to rule them all and learn all of human knowledge. Wait, no, we said it didn't work like that. Yeah, okay.
We just need, I don't know, like I think like culture will change a lot when you'll have access to the internet as easy as you have access to your memory, and that will fuck up a lot.
See, so you were very skeptical at first, but what I'm hearing here is that there is a cultural singularity.
Yeah, which has to do with truth. Like you
just
need truth.
Not, just
you
not
need
in
science
irony.
and truth. It's not about faking. Like,
I mean, gaining levels of reference often comes with irony and like some kind of ironic distance appreciation or whatever. Let's wrap up. So we didn't solve anything, did we? We established that there was going to be some sort of cultural singularity. We self-referenced a lot of other podcast episodes. That was very meta.
we established. I love how you say we established, as if like we actually done something.
It's done. Like we can move on. Yeah.
It's established for all humanity now. That will happen after this 1 hour long gibberish talk.
It was always established because of determinism, but now we know.
Everything is established. You only.
Oh, you should rewatch Battlestar Galactica. No. Everything is established was Dark Gently.
I haven't watched. I've watched 2 or 3 episodes of Dark Gently.
Okay.
Not the whole.
See the amount of information that I communicated by just saying Dark Gently? This is what the cultural singularity is all about. So that was the cultural singularity. Thanks for listening to a lot of unprepared rambling, but I think we did okay.
We'll see after the edit.
We'll see after the edit, but most importantly of all, to know if we did okay and to do better, we need to hear from you. So don't hesitate to leave thoughts, comments, critics, insults at notdailypodcast at Gmail or on Reddit or on YouTube or on Twitter or what? That's it for now?
I think that's it.
Yeah, and hopefully with your feedback, we will progress towards this podcast's very own singularity. I'm good at cringy endings, I think.